Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Garden City Planning Commission. It's Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, so if everyone would stand, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Would the secretary take the roll call, please?
Chairperson May.
Here.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Here.
Commissioner Turnbull. Here. Commissioner Walls. Commissioner Kalidas. Commissioner King.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
You have a quorum of 5.
Okay. Next, we need approval of the agenda. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Second. Motion's made and seconded. Any comments or questions?
No.
Take the roll.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. Next, we need approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of August 10th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull. Chairperson May.
Aye. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items only. These are items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if someone would like to come up to the podium and have a comment about something that's not on tonight's agenda, feel free to do it at this time. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the business items. First item is consideration of application. Request to accept a new conditional rezoning application for 20712 Pardo Avenue based on proposed changes in conditions. Mr. Ortega, do you have anything you'd like to start us off with here?
Just to briefly summarize for those that might not be aware of the entire process. Basically, the applicant, who was the owner of 30712 Pardo, in March, was before the Planning Commission with a proposal for a 12-unit townhouse-style development that was going through the conditional rezoning process. A public hearing was held. Eventually, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that particular plan, but then that particular proposal for rezoning conditionally to R3 was denied by the City Council. The zoning ordinance does allow applications for rezoning that are denied that are deemed by the Planning Commission to be to have different and new information to be reconsidered. If the same information is presented, then the application cannot be heard for a 1-year period. In July, the applicant presented a revised plan, and at that meeting of the Planning Commission, you determined that there was not sufficient enough changes to the original submittal. So before you tonight is a further revised plan with an attempt by the applicant to address the concerns raised by the Commission in July. So now it's up to the Commission to determine if what's before them is sufficiently different from the original application to warrant a reconsideration of the conditional R3 rezoning request.
Okay. I know with the previous submittal, I had concerns over not having elevations for all 4 sides of the building, and that has been provided now, as well as details for the masonry screening wall on the west side of the property. So is there any comment from the commission? Any discussion?
Well, maybe I'll just mention, I appreciate the applicant taking our suggestions back and bringing back your updated, revised proposal. And I'd be happy to make a motion unless there's other conversation.
Any other comments?
I've one comment. Having walked that area a number of times to get a feel for the neighborhood, the complexion of the architecture there, be it R1 or R2, which there are many, I never realized there was as many as there are there in the R2 category. Between Merriman Road and Henry Ruff, you have 3 blocks. And in those 3 blocks, the north side of the street has a significant number of apartment units in it. Altogether, there are about 78 individual apartments over, let's see, 7 different buildings that have about 78 approximate apartments in them. And in the R1, during that same area, or on that same area on the north side of the street only, we have 13 houses. So looking at the complexion of that neighborhood and the makeup that has been established over the last 5 decades or so, I would say, history of Garden City, there's a lot of apartment units on the north side of the street. And there's far fewer houses, R1 houses, than there are R2 developments. So I see this fitting into that complexion of the neighborhood perfectly. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Well, as far as this consideration goes, we're just deciding if we should take up this again or not. So if you want to go ahead and make your motion now?
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion, just go back to the agenda, to accept the request to accept a new conditional rezoning application for 30712 Pardo Avenue based on the proposed changes and conditions.
Support.
Support. Any discussion on the motion?
Second.
We have support.
Commissioner Williams was the second.
That's okay. Hearing no discussion, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. Okay, the next item is scheduling of a public hearing for 30712 Pardo to go along with the revised application. So do we have a date for that public hearing?
We would be able to get it noticed to the residents and published, and have it at the October 12th meeting, the next
Okay.
regularly scheduled meeting.
For the next regular
Yep.
scheduled meeting? Okay. If someone would care to make a motion to schedule that?
Make a motion to schedule public hearing for the October 12th meeting concerning Pardo development. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
So it was just one question. Does that mean that this would go before the city council following the October 12th?
Yeah,
If we approve it after the public hearing,
Okay.
yeah,
to
so
recommend
to
to the city
clarify
council.
the schedule, how this would go is, what we'll do is we'll notify the residents within 300 feet of the public hearing for the October 12th Planning Commission meeting. October 12th, we will have the public hearing, then Planning Commission will take, review the plan and make a recommendation to council, that Planning Commission either recommends approval or denial of the new plan. And then following that meeting, it will be on the council agenda where council will have final decision of approval or denial. So where Planning Commission for this matter basically acts as a recommending body. So,
Okay, we have motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. All right, public hearing is scheduled for the October 12th meeting. We'll see you See you then. Yeah. All right, the next order of business is PPL 23-0024, request for special land use recommendation and site plan approval to establish a new two-tenant commercial building with a drive-through window service at 28484 Ford Road in the C3 General Business District. This is a long time coming on a vacant piece of property on Ford Road right next to the Kentucky Fried Chicken business. And so if you'd like to start us off, Mr. Ortega?
Yes, Mr. Chair. As you alluded to, this was previously approved for a brand-new development. However, those approvals lapsed. One other aspect that's unique to this site is that it also was a drive-through previously. I believe it was a Rally's. But at the approval, we did the research, thanks to our exhaustive research by the department, that at that time, the approval for drive-throughs did not require a special land use. Now, with this application and the ordinances that are on the books now, they do require special use approval. So that's why they're before you tonight for that aspect. So with regards to that, you know, the site itself is about 19,165 square feet in area, located, as you mentioned, on the north side of Ford Road, west of Harrison. Generally a vacant site with some of the older, some of the previous surface improvements still intact, and also the existing curb cut. The special use is for the drive-through only. You have my review letter, which goes over all the individual characteristics listed in the zoning ordinance that you have to consider. I'm just going to briefly summarize and highlight the some of the important issues. Number one being compatibility with adjacent uses. The majority of the site is surrounded by properties zoned and used as commercial, with the adjacent property to the north zoned R3 multiple family. While zoned multifamily, it is occupied by a single-family residence. But the adjacent commercial properties have a high level of similar activity as the proposed use and would be compatible with the redevelopment of the site, we believe, because of their similar characteristics and conditions, such as hours of operations, level of activity on the site, that sort of thing. For the property to the north, though, the construction of the required masonry screening wall we believe will assist with the compatibility between a reestablished drive-through use on this site and the existing and future residential uses that may occur north of the property. This is a condition that's found along all our major corridors, both along Ford Road, our components of Middle Belt and Warren, in which this is how we attempt to accommodate that condition where the commercial uses are adjacent to residential. So we do believe, as proposed, this drive-through use would be compatible in this location. We also look at compatibility with what the master plan envisions for the site. The future land use map designates a subject site and all adjacent properties as a mixed use. And that designation for mixed use is intended to permit a mixture of commercial, office, institutional, and multifamily developments, and in this particular case, to transition into the downtown. In this location, properties to the east of it are currently generally single-use sites that are more auto-oriented, such as, you know, we have some auto repair facilities, a couple gas stations, well, one gas station to the east, several car washes to the east of Harrison on Ford, so that we believe that the establishment of this multi-tenant site, while it does include a drive-through, it also has a space for an additional tenant that will have walk-up configuration into the building. So we believe this will allow for the beginning of that transition that the master plan envisions of more auto-oriented uses that are strictly single use to the east, to this type of mixed use on this site, And then eventually, as you travel westward on Ford Road into the downtown, as we have more development, more pedestrian-oriented uses in the downtown. So we do believe the special use would be compatible with the master plan's vision of a mixed use on the site. One other key aspect is to make sure that this proposed use is in compliance with our regulations, because as I just mentioned, the screening wall, the other aspects of site plan review are important to make sure that this proposed drive-through will function accordingly and will be compatible with the other properties. So we would recommend that any special land use approval be contingent upon the site plan approval. Finally, one thing to point out about this particular configuration and its impact on traffic. The proposed site plan shows a slight relocation of the existing curb cut on the east and the construction of a new curb cut on the west. But one benefit of this new curb cut is that it has an exit-only configuration. So in theory, it will create less volume at that point of the new curb cut and less turning movements than a full entry and exit into the site would be if that was a fully functional driveway. Now, in the end, MDOT does have the final say and approval as to whether that driveway will function. I believe the applicant may have had those initial discussions with MDOT, but if not, those will have to occur. But with regards to the special land use criteria, we believe the drive-through use will not have a significant impact on the Ford Road traffic and function. So in the end, when it comes to the special land use question for the drive-through, we would advise the Planning Commission to recommend approval of the proposed multi-tenant building with drive-through restaurant use to City Council based on that the proposed use meets the special land use requirements. So that summarizes my comments on special land use. We can have that discussion if you want on special use or move on to site plan at the appropriate time.
Okay. Is there a representative for the applicant or the applicant? Yes, would you care to come up, sir?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Steve Colbert, the architect of the project. My address is 828 Davis Street in Evanston, Illinois.
Okay. And do you have anything you'd like to say about the application or the plans?
Mr. Ortega really summed up what we're doing for the special use pretty clearly. The drawings that we're providing is a two-tenant building, as I'm sure you've already looked at. Dunkin' Donuts is the main tenant. Second one to be determined based on moving forward with this project, finding who's going to lease that space. The only things I'd like to add are what Dunkin' typically relies on in terms of traffic is the traffic that's already on the street. Dunkin's not a real destination, it's the people that are already going there. So our impact to overall increase in traffic is usually pretty low. There's a million Dunkins, or anything. The ones that are convenient are the ones you go to. Also, I think it's important to point out that for the hours of a Dunkin', 5 a.m. to like 10, that's the magic hours for a Dunkin' Donuts. After that, it really scales down. As a matter of fact, proposed hours at this point for this location would be open at 5 a.m. Open to employees will show up like at 4, right, to set up. Open at 5, and it could close at the very latest at 10. So there's not a huge overnight 24-hour impact that's going to be at this location. But the one thing we like about this is, especially when it comes to the two-tenant option, is as busy as the drive-through will probably be in the morning. We don't anticipate with a drive-through these days at a Dunkin' Donuts, it's 60 to 80% of the business, depending on the location, is drive-through. And COVID really helped drive that, and we're finding that nationwide at Dunkin's. It's more the convenience of the drive-through, and they're on their way. But also for second tenant and parking and impact of that, when the Dunkin's really slowing down, the parking lot's really empty. So we feel really good about a shared parking opportunity at the site as well. I know we haven't talked about parking yet, but that's one thing I always like to bring up. But as far as the special use for the drive-through, Mr. Ortega pretty much summed up what we're looking to ask for approval from this body.
Okay, have you contacted MDOT as far as your curb cuts?
No, we have not. I've had a very cursory conversation with them, what we were doing, but we haven't followed it up past that. Just, we have a contact we've talked to in the past and said, this is what we're thinking of doing. And the initial comment was, it does not seem out of the ordinary, especially for the additional curb cut because of the distances from the other curb cuts and because it's exit only. It didn't seem like it was raising any real red flags, but we haven't followed through with any real submission to them yet.
Okay. Well, if you have nothing else, I don't think we have anything at this time, but if we have any questions later on, we'll bring them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, we'll open the floor for the public hearing at 6:50. Anyone who wishes to comment on the application, please come up to the podium and make yourself known. Anyone wish to speak on this application? Okay, seeing no one. Do we have any written communications?
Our office received no written communications regarding the public hearing.
All right, then. We'll close the public hearing at 6:52 and open it up for planning commission discussion.
Well, I made the mistake of visiting this property and driving into it. It's time that somebody does something with it, so I'm happy to see that there's an investment.
Yeah, it's been sitting there
Yeah.
like that for quite a while now. Any other comments? Of course,
Quick question for
Yes.
Mario. Mario, were you familiar when we proposed this? First time this came before the commission?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I didn't have a chance to look at the previous documents. That was before my, right before my time.
4 to 5 years anyhow.
Right, there was quite a bit of discussion on the stacking and perhaps them annexing the back half of that alley on this lot because their stacking wasn't coming out very well. So I don't know if that's been, I don't have
Well-
the drawings from 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it was, when we did this the first time. Gonna be right back there again, or?
the stacking on the plan, does that meet our requirements?
So yes, the stacking shows 10 vehicles, and 10 vehicles are shown. And then after the 10th vehicle, you've got probably about 60 to 70, an additional 60 to 70 feet on the private property. So in theory, that's at least 3 more cars behind it. However, I will say that, as residents, you guys are well aware of some sites, no matter how much stacking we get in there, we just, either due to the popularity or due to staffing levels of the business or their operations, sometimes that Tim Hortons is just pretty backed up.
Yeah, they
So,
can
and we've had some issues with, like the King Cone. They actually have finally enacted their proposed, and they're approved, that you approved, dual lane configuration. And I think since then, the issues at that site have been minimal, I think. I haven't heard as many issues with that. So the answer is that, the short answer is that they are in compliance with our ordinance. And they do have some extra space. And I do believe if need be, there are some ways to address it in the future.
Okay. Commissioner Steenberg?
When does the stacking, where is the starting threshold at?
From the service window.
From
So
the
that service window, so the good thing is this.
That's the terminus.
Yes, so,
Where's the starting point?
well, I mean, we start counting from the service window and then
And go back
10
from there.
vehicles back.
Oh, and go back?
So, yeah, because you have, and the good thing is their service window is at the southernmost point of the building, which
Sure.
maximizes, they don't allow to lead off of, in front of them.
Well, in this case, it looks favorable because it looks like there could be at least 2 other vehicles stacked up and still be inside, well inside
Yeah.
of the public sidewalk.
Yep,
Which
exactly.
would give them 12
Yep.
conceivably plus. So that's a good thing. Okay,
Okay, well,
the window backwards.
the approval, if we are ready to make a recommendation for approval, would be contingent, of course, on approval of the site plan.
Correct.
So,
I just wanted to know that we were not revisiting the same old thing again. That those corrections were made, because there was quite a bit of discussion. I believe they came back at least twice.
yeah, possibly the configuration of the building was a little different at that time.
Right. So I just don't want to go over, rehash the same old thing again, so. But as far as the, proposal right now that we have for site plan approval, just to get it back going again, yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
If we get a site plan, then, I'll agree.
Someone care to make a motion for recommendation?
Yeah, I will.
Mike?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend this for approval. The site at 2848 Ford Road in the C3 General Business District.
Contingent
Uh,
on site plan approval?
Contingent upon site plan approval, yeah.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Turnbull, Chairperson May.
Aye. Okay. Next, we have the site plan review. So if Mr. Ortega, if you would get us started on that?
Yes, sir. So you have my letter with regard to that. As briefly, I will say there are a number of issues that still need to be corrected. I have had initial discussions with the applicant. They're aware of it. They already started to address some of them. But based on the plan in front of you tonight, some of my comments are, while the proposed building elevations and architecture, look pretty attractive. It's going to be a modern, contemporary building. The proposed materials are high quality, but we just would like some clarification on those elevations as to make sure that the graphic representation of that materials is consistent and labeled consistent. And then also that we would also like to know the colors proposed for the materials. Going back and looking at the parking, loading, and access management questions, the number of parking spaces provided is sufficient for the Dunkin' Donuts. And then based on the size of the building, we do still need to know the number of employees on site in order to make sure that which parking spaces will be dedicated to Dunkin'. That will then, based on that, there would be, so there are 9 parking spaces that are open for allocation. Some of them will be taken up by the employees, once we know that number, and then the remaining will be available for the tenant space. The way this works with our multi-tenant buildings is that when they submit an application for a tenant, I will review the certificate of occupancy based on that use. So as long provided that new tenant has a demand that is equal to the number of parking spaces available, then that tenant could move in. So for example, if they wanted to put a sit-down restaurant with 40 tables in that little in the second unit, chances are it's not going to be approved. But the applicant's aware of that, also with the market of it and everything. If there was an office would definitely be approved in that. So it's just a matter of the amount of parking spaces that are available.
Well, what do we need to approve for a vacant tenant space?
So for a vacant tenant space, the fact that they're going to have at least, I would say at least 7 parking spaces available, I think that's more than sufficient. But we would like a revised plan to at least state.
But that includes Dunkin' Donuts, doesn't it?
Right. So, well,
And how many are we talking? We're also talking about some indoor seating at Dunkin' for customers?
correct. So so based on the size of the building and the ordinance requirements, the Dunkin' will require, is it it? Sorry, I'm trying to do the math. So based on the math, you're required to have one space per employee based on maximum employment shift, and one space for 50 square feet of dining area within the Dunkin'. The borough's use as about 420 square feet of dining area, so that's 4 parking spaces. So of the 17 parking spaces,
And how many employees are
and
expected to
plus
be
how
on
many
site?
employees, they will have enough.
At peak hours, the 5 to 10 time, there's probably 5 employees. After that.
5 employees.
5, and then after 10, lunchtime on till the 10 o'clock closing at the latest, you'd be as low as 2 employees.
Okay,
So based on maximum shift with 5 employees and 4 required in the building, that's 9, and then the site has 17 parking spaces available.
so, okay.
So they're gonna have 8 parking
There's
spaces.
a reasonable amount for the other building,
Right.
yeah, okay,
Depending on the intensity.
sure, yeah. Well, it'll be self-limiting in that respect.
Yeah, sure will.
So moving on, just some additional revisions necessary. For example, the parking, the sidewalk adjacent to the building needs to be widened to be 7 feet to accommodate for the overhang of vehicles. We do need the applicant to provide a truck maneuvering plan to ensure that the trash hauling vehicles, tractor-trailer vehicles, and emergency vehicles can efficiently and safely access the site. So we need those to be supplied to us. A loading zone, it's typically required, they are proposing a loading zone that is 20 feet by 20 feet square to the northeast of the building. The zoning ordinance technically requires a 10-foot by 50-foot loading zone. However, the planning commission can alter that as you see fit with regards to the conditions proposed by the applicant. For example, if the applicant said that a box truck was visiting the site, and then a 20 by 20
Can
parking
you
space
tell
would
them,
be
can you
adequate.
tell us what your typical delivery truck looks like?
Once a week, there'll be a regular semi-trailer, and I can show them a turning radius as you asked, to show it a wrap around the building. That comes before the early morning hours, so that bypass lane, the truck will sit there and then it pulls out. But daily deliveries, it is a box van that comes with the donuts that it's usually made, well, donuts that are usually made at a commissary and brought daily to the stores. So that small little area, they just wheel off a couple of carts and they wheel back on. So for the Dunkin', that's more than sufficient for our use.
Okay, so,
But there will be a semi.
Yeah, usually once a week.
Bobtail or a full,
Sorry?
a bobtail or a full semi?
A full semi, not the 55-foot, I think it's a 50-foot, it's a one size smaller, right? I think it's a 50-foot one. And it's a pallet delivery, just the pallet comes down, they bring in sundries for the week, and then it's on its way, it's a short delivery.
Will they be coming during your busy hours from?
They generally come
5
before
a.m.?
the busy hours,
Before busy
Yeah.
hours?
or off-peak hours, depends on the, and we have, the operator is here, can discuss that. But it's,
Can that be scheduled to be in stone, that they be before that?
Yeah, they-
Because if you're busy from 5 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and you have a full semi on this property,
you're hitting the nail on the head. The deliveries will not be during peak hours, it just can't be, right? Because you're just, all
didn't think so.
hands are on
yeah,
deck.
there would be no drive-through.
Yeah, all hands are on deck at that time. It's usually before or after the peak hours.
okay,
Yeah, I think we could probably work with that.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
as we were talking about the parking, just so I can reiterate also, and I think we spoke briefly about this, Mr. Ortega, but when we say that Dunkin' after 10 o'clock really goes way down, that's the peak employees are not there, then the parking really is after 10 a.m. when a normal retail store or a T-Mobile or something like that, that would be in that smaller unit, has an opportunity for even more parking than what we're providing. So we feel comfortable about the amounts that are on the site.
Now, will you have say-so over when these deliveries are made, or does corporate make that decision? And
No, the deliveries can be scheduled,
okay,
especially.
because I'm sure you don't want to schedule them to where it may overlap with your busy time in the morning, because you'd be restricting all your business.
Understood, and I don't know, but the franchisee has several stores, so they can say, I need you at this store at this time. There's other locations where they've got plenty of room, and that, it just doesn't bother, but it's tighter locations, they can schedule it so it doesn't
Livonia
interfere.
has more space for a truck of that size, yeah.
So, yeah, so they can schedule it so it's outside of the peak hours.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good
Thank
with
you.
that.
Okay, Mr. Ortega.
Yes, so moving on, other issues that need to be addressed, a landscape plan was not provided, so that must be submitted by the applicant for review. As we discussed in special land use, the site plan currently does not show the screening wall, so a screening wall needs to be shown on a revised plan, including the cross-section details, and make sure it's a 6-foot-high masonry wall constructed with the appropriate footings. Similarly, while a trash dumpster enclosure is shown, we need the details of that enclosure, once again for the construction details. And then a photometric lighting plan, while it was submitted, there are some details that are missing from that, such as, so we would need a revised photometric plan showing the location, mounting height, and light levels, well, excuse me, the location, mounting height, and of the fixtures, along with the detailed cut sheets. One aspect, finally, when it comes to drive-throughs, is we do have some specific standards that go over the site plan. The applicant's site does meet the minimum frontage requirement. The location of the driveways are adequately separated. But, once again, the importance of the screening wall is brought up because it is specifically outlined as a requirement for drive-through, fast food and drive-through restaurants. So that screening wall does need to be shown. Then also, the applicant must also provide the details of the location of, well, the location and also the style and the equipment for the menu ordering system, just to make sure that it's appropriately the sound levels will be appropriately manageable, meaning able to turn those down as needed. And nowadays, with the modern drive-throughs, the ordering menus, if they are a full LED screen, we need to evaluate those details to make sure that the light levels aren't excessive. While we do have the screening wall in the back, we need to make sure that those light levels of those screens aren't seen from Harrison or from.
Yeah, okay.
So in the end, while we do believe the overall concept and the proposed configuration are appropriate, and there is enough site area to have the use function efficiently, there are a lot of details that have been left, are not included with this submission. I've already had some discussions with the applicant. They already addressed that. They've begun work on addressing those items. But it's up to you as to whether you feel you'd like to see a revised plan for this, or if you are comfortable with these type of items being addressed administratively.
Well, personally, I think, I like the concept, but I think there's too many items that need to be cleaned up, too many details that are left out to approve it at this time. I think possibly we should table it until they can get back with a revised plan. How does everyone else feel about that?
I'd like to see a complete plan. I would myself. This is not a complete plan. We need that screening wall, we need that light cut sheets.
Did I miss it, or is there not a dumpster enclosure?
It's there in the upper left, but the description is not.
Yeah,
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 there's
that was
additional
the-
details
that
that
was the
need to
other
be,
thing.
yeah.
It didn't give me a much.
yeah.
I'll put it on the table. So we
Does-
have dumpster, sidewalk, lighting cut sheet, wall landscaping.
Well, I think we can just say that
Impossible.
all of the items listed in
Yeah,
the detail of the site plan review
yep.
need to be provided. Basically, those items that are underscored in the review that,
Do you want to go through those with the applicant and make sure they know what we're after?
Well, I think Mr. Ortega can
Leave
do
it
that.
with Mario?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he probably has most of it already. But in the meantime, I think we need to wait until we get a more complete plan before us. If it was just a matter of a couple of details, maybe we could
Landscaping
do
or
it
something, or,
administratively, but there's quite a few items on the list.
yes.
So I'd
there
like
is.
to see a cleaner site plan come back with all of these items taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's better to table.
Someone-
Quick question, on the sidewalk, what was the concern on the sidewalk, the width of it?
7
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah, just the sidewalk adjacent to the building. Right now, there's a proposed 5-foot sidewalk. Usually, we like to see a 7-foot sidewalk, so when vehicles can overhang, there's still enough space between the buildings for people to walk.
Yeah,
And what we do is typically compensate for that by instead of having a 20-foot space, you can have an 18-foot space. Because that usually, that's same configuration if, for example, if there was no, they could keep the 5-foot sidewalk, but then put a bumper block for the front wheel chocks.
sure.
That's 2 feet away from the 5-foot sidewalk, so there's
Yeah,
your
so-
7-foot.
Kind of equals the same thing.
Yeah,
You
6
lose
one,
that
half dozen the
space
other.
anyway.
Yeah, and you'll find that most property owners do not like the
Bumper
It's
blocks.
blocks.
easier
Just
to
because
clean up
they're-
the snow without the bumper
Yeah,
blocks.
unfortunately, Mr. Plow is pretty aggressive in their
Yeah.
Yeah.
plowing techniques, so.
Mario, real quick though, on the loading zone, that was 20 by 50 is our,
A 10 by 50
10 by
typically.
50, okay, so, and that's gonna be marked off in the back, say where the branch is here for the vehicle height clearance bar.
Yeah, so-
Going west of that for 50 feet?
So they can choose where it could be located, as law provided that most vehicles can exit. The key to this, and they've already mentioned, is that they will provide the truck maneuvering plan to make sure when a vehicle enters and exits the site effectively because of that turning radiuses. So depending on how it works and depending on their configuration, some of the curbs might need to be adjusted. But the intent, and you know, the issue with that too is that those turning radii are almost the same, not quite, but almost the same as our fire
Fire
vehicles.
trucks.
So that's why that's important. And things such as those overhead bars for drive-throughs do have to be adjusted accordingly. Maybe they're shortened in length, so that way the other vehicle, but they have a what's called an exit lane adjacent to the drive-through, which is great because that's those turning
Let them
radii.
avoid awnings and
Correct.
height bars.
So it just needs to be shown on the plan.
Better, yes. To clean that up, that'd be helpful.
Well, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table for further information.
I'll second that.
Oh,
Just one
we-
question.
Yes.
Just for the applicant, when were you trying to break ground?
That would be, spring. Early spring,
Okay.
outside, yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
And we have some time to play with here.
That's what I was
Okay.
thinking, yeah.
Mr. Ortega is very clear in his comments, and we feel everything that he's outlining are very minor things that we can fix pretty quickly, so we intend to be back in front of you at the next meeting.
The next regular meeting in October then?
Yeah, our team's already made 80% of the adjustments already, so we should have something for
Okay,
Mr.
well-
Ortega to look at mid-next week. So we feel comfortable.
We can schedule it again for the next regular meeting.
And working with Mario, he can help you dial it in to fine tune.
Oh,
what
and
we have.
as he has been already. He's been very helpful.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. Okay, this is table till the next regular meeting in October. Thank you. Next item. 2017 Master Plan 5-Year Review. Mr. Ortega.
Yes. So within your packet is a draft memo going through a review of of the city's master plan. This is something that's required by the state statute for the Planning Commission to take a look at the master plan and to evaluate it. The intent is that you, the Planning Commission, are here to determine whether or not, basically whether or not the plan is still working for the city. You know, the review is intended to determine whether or not the analysis, goals, and policies, you know, conducted in 2017 are relevant today and still serve the city well. So in the end, this process and your conclusions, you really should make a determination that either the current master plan maybe should be updated with an amendment, or that a whole new plan should be created, or that the current document should just remain as is. So as I mentioned previously before this, the intent is to provide you with a document that goes over an initial summary of what's in the plan and then come to some initial conclusions. But this is just a draft, and based on your feelings on it, you know, you can direct me as to saying whether you do agree or don't agree with some of the conclusions in here, any rewrites you would like to do for yourself, and, you know, to have an open discussion as to the conclusions. So briefly, what I'll just say is that in the end, I do believe the plan, when it, as written, does meet the intent of providing a document that served the city well based on the conditions at that time in 2017. You know, and the key thing I think about the plan this particular document is that basically I've come to the conclusion that the master plan forms a narrative for a redevelopment strategy to create a walkable, vibrant, and sustainable community. And then the overall vision of the master plan is to find a balance between the future needs of our existing residents while creating the amenities for new residents. And I think that the plan does that relatively well, but it does have its own narrative. I mean, the one thing that's, as I try to include throughout, is that the 5 sections of the master plan begin with an analysis and then create a narrative throughout. It's basically a consistent narrative is established and then carried out throughout the document all the way to the implementation. And that narrative is basically that as an inner-ring community, I want to find one of my good sentences here. You know, the master plan lays the groundwork for the overall land use policy direction. The master plan is crafted to address the current conditions by promoting the master plan chooses to promote a more walkable urban community with a wider variety of housing types in an attempt to attract new residents and provide local walkable alternatives for existing residents. And they take their root in the beginning of the document and they're going throughout. So it definitely chooses a course based on the existing conditions. And then one key thing too, I believe, you know, throughout is that it comes to this conclusion, the document comes to this conclusion. Well, it starts out with an initial snapshot of urban communities that are mature, saying that the population is aging, there is declining investment in the housing stock, and there are vacancies along the commercial corridors. The demographic data that it presents supports it, but it also then, from that point, takes the tact that the city is a prime for redevelopment. And it's a prime for redevelopment by including, you know, it includes national quotations about national trends, and includes some innovative land use policy techniques. But it's basically intending to guide the community towards a walkable community that has more housing alternatives to attract new residents. So that's what the document is trying to do, and then in those policies do that. So that's my conclusion of what this document is trying to do. So I'm here to take your direction as to whether this is accurate, whether you'd like to come to different conclusions, and then what your opinion is as to whether the plan should be kept as is, maybe it needs a full amendment, or maybe it needs just a complete new plan.
Well, personally, I think the general direction of the plan is good, but I don't like some of the specific goals or recommendations, and some of the statements that it made, I don't think are any longer accurate. So I would like to see us go through it generally, and possibly the commissioners could look at the plan and decide if there's sections that they would like to see us review. And if so, we can discuss that. And possibly we can take that section by section in the plan to make it more manageable. But there are a couple of sections, I think, that I would like to see reviewed. So I think I don't want to see it thrown out completely, but I would like to possibly see some changes made.
Changes to the actual master plan document.
Pardon me?
Changes to the actual master plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Any other comment?
I support that, and I'm a little concerned with depending on 2010. I just think the world has changed so significantly over that time. To really anchor anything to 2010 is probably foggy at best. My other thought is, although the walkable city I think is great, both of my kids were just buying houses, and finding a walkable was not on their list. It was all about, hey, what are my taxes? What's the millage rate? And I think that's a problem in Garden City. So I'd like to see how we focus on accelerating business investment in the city to help with the tax base.
And to me, I've lived here my entire life. Ford Road is not a walkable city. Ford Road is not Ferndale. To compare us to Ferndale or anywhere else, like in this walkable plan, is not even a comparison. So I think that's where we need to maybe look at an amendment and change it, because like he's saying, to compare this to 2010, we're not even close. So I think that's where we need to review it a little bit more and see if we need to go into a different direction.
Okay, do we need a motion?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the memo, you know, if you feel it's serves your needs, that's fine. If you want to make any edits, that's fine as too. And I guess the idea would be what your conclusions are. Like if your conclusion is that maybe we need to look at a master plan amendment, then that's your conclusion. Then you've determined, hey, we need an update to this master plan. If that's your conclusion, I guess it would be something that would be put in a motion, or a motion, and then that's something that would begin the discussion with administration and with city council about amending the master plan. My conclusion at the end of this was about an implementation plan, the idea of creating a supplemental document that would be, I guess it would have been more focused on the commercial side of things, or at least the new development side of things. Basically, taking some of our key development sites, such as the old Kmart, such as some of the other larger sites or sites that need development, do some more detailed market analysis, use current data to evaluate the existing commercial businesses in the area, see where we're lacking, and then try and come up with a detailed plan for the physical aspect of these sites. Now, whether that's something you think is, if it goes far enough, you think that goes far enough, or do you feel like it is more important to do a full-blown not a full, but an update to the document, rather than just a second document that continues on what it's
I see
started.
where you're going, so instead of where we had Kmart and it going to another gym, we should have done a mixed-use development with commercial,
Right,
commercial, retail.
Yep.
And a mixed-use residential.
yes.
And that would have been more of our master plan instead of smacking another gym on Ford Road.
So that's the thing, is like this, the idea of just, right now, the first idea I had was this type of implementation plan. So it wouldn't do a lot to address what you feel are the shortcomings on the master plan. It would try and focus, I guess, focus more on possibly on what you were mentioning, Frank, the idea of creating business development by first doing a more detailed site planning, basically, or plot planning for a site. But also, in the end, the idea would be to what changes we would have to make in city policy to see that kind of development happen. But also, the good thing, actually, in our current environment, the state is actually doing a lot of investment at the local level. They have a lot of funds available. The Michigan Economic Development Council, if a local community can put together the right package, they're willing to have, to put in funds from a state level to subsidize developments. But like I said, that suggestion is very focused on current economic development activity. If you feel that it's better to take a step back and update the master plan, then that's something that could be done too. And that's not to say what I'm proposing now couldn't be done at some level in a master plan update. You know, we could do that too. It depends on what you feel is the most appropriate action to take.
You think that a supplemental direction statement would be easier to implement than amending the plan itself?
I guess it would depend on what kind of activities you would want to update to do. For example, if you wanted, actually doing something like a demographic analysis with more up-to-date data, that's actually pretty straightforward. That's something that's done by crunching numbers with the latest statistics, and we could do that. That wouldn't be something that would take a long time, and that would be something that could be done. I think the other aspect of the update would be depending on how much public input you would like to see into the policies. Because as you mentioned, some of you I feel have mentioned, if you feel the policies aren't reflecting what you'd like to see happen, and they need to change, you know, they can change based on data or they can change based on input from the public. So it's what you feel, like what tasks need to happen.
Well, there's parts of the plan that there's been no implementation
Right,
at all.
exactly.
And I think part of it is due to the fact that nobody really believes that part of the plan is worthwhile. So
Or how difficult it is, because sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt Fred, but I just like.
either way, either too difficult to do or not worth doing.
Because, I mean, that's not to pick on things or anything, but that's why I pointed out and talked about the whole garden residential proposed development sites. While it's something that physically and from a top-down aspect, you know, when you're looking at the city from above, it seems like, oh yeah, everybody's got these large rear yards. Let's put a new road through the backyard and put new homes back there. Sounds easy physically, but you have to have a lot of support and and everybody
Yeah.
has to get
A
excited about
lot of people
that.
bought those big lots because they wanted a big lot.
Right.
I'm not one of them, and you're not taking my lot.
Exactly. So there you go. See, that's
Yeah,
an aspect.
Garden residential district is something that I've never been so
Correct.
supportive of.
Exactly.
Real quick, Fred, a question I have is what is the DDA, what is city council, are they interested in supporting something like this? Or is this something that we're gonna try to send out a memo or whatever to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or are we?
So as the planning commission and based on the state law, you are for all better words, the keeper of the master plan. And you are the ones that actually adopt the master plan. Why the council can adopt it after you, And I don't believe our charter says the council adopts the plan. Some communities do choose to have their legislative body adopt the master plan. I will just say that typically that's not always done because you'd like to try and keep it as minimal political document as possible, however hard that might be, because it is, you know, about land use policy.
Yeah, you can't
So
get
you
anything
can't-
done without the political support.
Correct. And that's the conundrum then. You do need political support. So to answer your question, Eric, it is starting from you, the planning commission, going to the other bodies, going to council, saying, you've evaluated.
It's gonna have something to say,
Correct.
and their views would be best to hear.
Exactly. But,
Start cracking eggs over something that's not really ready to go.
well, and that's why, but you're, as the planning commission, and once again, the body that approves the master plan, if your professional opinion is that it needs to be considered, you can start that conversation. Now, how far that conversation goes based on council's opinion, you know, that's, conversations need to be had, but it's up to you to be the leaders in
Well, how
terms
about if
of
we
that.
approach it this way? How about if we come back and review those items that we think we'd like to see, either included or deleted, and then decide on the best approach to do that?
That would be a good approach. That would be like, if you could identify, you guys specifically identify, all right, these are the aspects of the plan I think need to be either eliminated or changed or added. I think that could be summarized in a memo that goes to council and goes to other bodies and says, we believe these aspects are lacking and we need to do this.
Okay, Mike?
Question, when we made the change in the industrial park, we identified that there hadn't been any new buildings put up over a certain period of time, which was 20 or 30 years. And we earmarked it for, I forget, not mixed use, but I think we opened it up to R2 over where the site plan condominiums got built.
Oh, yeah. On Manor Park?
Was that an addendum to our master plan of 2015? Or was it part of a full-blown change?
I think it was the addendum. The 2017 addendum was like a
Okay.
minor.
I think so
thing,
too,
and I-
because we didn't change the whole kit and caboodle at that time.
No, but did the garden residential get inserted then? Or was
No,
that always
that was-
part of? That was
I think
always
that
part
That
of.
was with the last major plan review.
I think that was
17.
post-17.
That was 17.
That was 17, that's what I thought. Like 15 didn't have it in there.
Now, the other thing, when we
Okay.
did the residential over top the commercial, it was over top of C1 and C2, or all three of the Cs?
Just C1 and C2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Was that a major addition, or was that an addendum type item? Because these are the type of things I think, you know, as soon as, we no sooner changed that zoning in the industrial park, and a developer.
We didn't, that didn't change the master plan at all.
That's what I'm asking.
No, we changed the zoning
Ordinance.
ordinance
Okay,
Zoning ordinance was
but I'm wondering.
by
did
just
that-
making an overlay for the,
mixed use.
for the mixed use.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Did it alter the master plan in a major way? And it didn't.
No, because that was actually suggested by the master plan. So that's one of the implementation steps of the master plan, is to
Because
create this mixed use.
That was a
overlay.
big plus.
It just didn't detail
Correct.
as much as we
And
went on
and
to
a
detail.
developer came
Correct.
in and built a number of units, all in the $200,000 range, and they were sold almost instantly. I think as fast as he was building them, he was selling them.
Over on Manor Park, right there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and the other thing, we haven't seen a big amount of it yet, but I think it's something to come. I see it in other cities more and more where they're putting residential above commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time, that was the way things were done all throughout Detroit and in the early days. And then it all kind of went away, and now it seems to be coming back. And in Ferndale, it never went away in Ann Arbor, but in Ferndale and Dearborn Heights, Dearborn, that's exploded in those three cities. So
Well, we've already
So-
approved mixed-use districts, so.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually one aspect, that's why I was thinking the implementation part would be one way to address that concern, because definitely the mixed-use concept of commercial on the ground floor and residential above, it's very popular and it's throughout. But I will say lately, that was proposed, well, number one, it's the consistent mixed-use style that's been gone like since forever, basically, because ever since urban development started to happen in, in the area, because you look at old downtowns, I was just looking, for some reason, I was looking at downtown Milan today. Downtown Milan, they had commercial on the bottom, residential above, and those were like 1890, 1880 buildings. But the issue lately, and you might see this in like downtown Detroit, where they do the requirement of commercial on the ground floor, residential above, the residences get sold out, and the commercial, it takes a while for that to get filled in.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is because, what comes first, chicken or the egg, what comes first, the business or the residence? But a lot of it too is like the change in the way we consume, we buy products, Not a lot of these businesses now are selling shirts and clothes and that sort of thing. Everybody's getting a lot of stuff off the internet. So that's why I thought the implementation section could do that analysis of like, what is a commercial square footage demand in the city based on current trends? Because even from early 2000, the spending habits of residents have changed. And so adjusting our desired square footage of commercial could result in things like maybe talking about having residential on the ground floor as well, maybe promoting more townhomes as well. A lot of urbanists don't like that because they say that it draws away from the activity on the ground floor. And it's kind of true, but the buildings can be designed so that they're able to be transitioned. They can be a commercial business one day, and then the next day they could be somebody's front patio in the front of it. There's some buildings like in Corktown behind the old taxi stand, the taxi building right there on Trumbull.
Yeah.
That building that got redeveloped there, there's some commercial there, but there's also some people have just like a nice patio in front around the street. Granted, it's not on Trumbull, it's off to the side, but to me, I think
Trouble is with that is most of our commercial is down Ford Road, and there's such heavy traffic there.
right,
How many people want to have the residents right on Ford Road?
exactly. See, that's the problem. So like, how do we might have to go through like,
Yeah.
I was thinking with the implementation plan.
That
you
could
go
work
through-
on some of the less traveled commercial streets.
Right, or like off to the side streets, like Henry
Well,
Ruff or Brant or something.
As a possibility to that could be an opportunity rather than a detriment being on the main road. Because I could envision a somewhat horseshoe-shaped condo development in lieu of LA Fitness with a central boulevard going in like we had approved for them, and have
Well,
that,
that piece of property lends itself to a lot of different things, but
and that could spur development in the other empty commercial storefronts that are in the immediate area, to possibly, cell phone, restaurants, that type of thing.
yeah. I mean, if the state has development money available, that would be a site to talk about.
Absolutely, because the issue there is, unfortunately, right now, I believe the demand, the real estate price for that land is relatively high by the current property owner. They want to get a lot of money for it. It is a brownfield site, and there are different economic development tools we could use, Opera, Pilot, all these other things.
To help attract people. in
To
other
do
words.
that, but yeah, but the key to getting a developer in is trying to do a lot of this administrative legwork ahead of time. So that way it makes it a little bit as more turnkey as you can for a developer to come in, if it reflects what the community wants.
Isn't that where our
Absolutely.
DDA is supposed to step in and kind of help us bring developer in? Shouldn't that be the head of our DDA? To step in
Absolutely.
and help us do that? Shouldn't they be bringing in new businesses?
Absolutely.
And helping us
Yeah.
implement our master plan? Isn't that why our master plan's kind of failing?
I think they are.
That's why we have a DDA and a director.
That is
So
the,
there's
and the
conversations that
idea,
need to be had with our DDA.
in an ideal relationship, they work hand in hand, and the DDA takes the lead on economic development, on physical improvements to the site that, you know, sometimes you can do, like the master plan can do certain policies, and I think that some of the things it's acted, like even something as simple as a common common dumpster enclosure, it relieves the burden and the cost from the property owners.
Yeah.
And then it can attract new tenants into the site. Something simple as that, that's focused on physical improvements and focused on other things can be done. And that's something that can come from the master plan too. But in the end, as you guys said, it sounds like there are a lot of things that need to be discussed, and the master plan might not, there's certain aspects of the implementation plan maybe and other goals that aren't reflective of what you'd like to see. Is that correct? Like there's definitely some deficiencies you want to change?
Well, I think it kind of, yes, to answer the question, I think the results, right, the decline in population and the decline in, suggest that maybe we need to do something different, right? So I agree.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're using a lot of old premises with the current plan. Maybe the premises should be updated because things have certainly changed in the last few years.
Just in the last 5, just from COVID.
Yeah.
Right, that's the thing, like COVID is impacting a lot.
It doesn't seem to be going away, so these are not, these are trends, these are gonna continue.
Yeah.
And it would not hurt us to step in a different direction, because clearly the direction we're in is not working.
So can I ask a question? I'm from the private sector, so I realize this is government, but is there any precedent for a workshop between DDA, Planning Commission,
Oh, yeah.
City Council
Absolutely.
perhaps, where we get together and say, hey, let's go through this, let's talk about it? Of course, we could make it public, record it or whatever. Is that something?
We've done it before, it was a visioning
Well,
session.
I think we could do that possibly, but we have to have something to take them.
Yeah, let's have something to show.
Yeah, we can't just go in
I'm not saying
and,
going in cold.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
We can't
hey,
walk in there and say, what do you guys think?
yeah, what do you got any ideas? You know, we're not doing well, you know?
Yeah, I think the last time we met with them was when we were going over McDonald's and hashing out the McDonald's.
Yeah.
That was the last time we met with them in that town hall meeting that we had, so.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea, but we need to have some kind of direction first.
So that actually is a good idea, helps me think the idea that, once again, if your conclusion is that we need to have more, we need an update to the master plan, maybe it is starting with letters to the council and maybe to DDA, maybe, that says, you know, we believe these are the areas that the master plan is deficient, we believe an update is needed, and then you can suggest things to like kickstart the process, like ask them, do we need to have a joint session to discuss them, or is like a joint session part of like a master plan update? You know, so it's up to you, because I think, Eric, you're probably right. When it comes to knowing if they want to undertake this endeavor, we don't know yet. But once again, that's the reason for this review, is that you guys start to ask that question. You raise your hand and say.
I think that all the bodies have a common goal, the planning commission, the DDA, city council.
We'd all like to see the same
We want
thing,
the city to prosper.
but maybe getting there in different ways, you know?
well, I will say, it strikes me as odd, because I think I've been in this seat for almost 2 years. We've never had a DDA person come here. I've watched the DDA meetings, but I've never gone there. So if we're
We've
not,
had DDA people here in the past,
In the past.
but I'm just saying it's been a long time, at least from since I've been here.
because,
It's
yes,
occasional, very
yeah,
occasional.
when there's something before us that they either like or don't like.
Or it falls under their jurisdiction, because the downtown development is an area.
Yeah, it's usually something in the
It's a dedicated
CBD.
area that they have more say, perhaps, than
Yeah.
anywhere else.
It'd be good to collaborate, I guess is my point.
Absolutely. We all
Yeah,
have
I
a-
agree.
We want them to say-
Uh,
Fred?
But maybe we should, yes. Brian?
So, to clarify, reading the Planning Enabling Act on there, there is a section in there, you were concerned about, collaborating with, where it says if you're doing an extension, addition, revision, or other amendment to a master plan, it follows, it's section 45, and it says it has to follow the steps in sections 39, 41, and 43. And section 41 does say, if you prepare a proposed master plan, either an initial one or an amended one, what we will do is we'll submit it to the legislative body of the city, and they basically grant approval, because once you make the amendment, then there has to be notifications to a lot of different entities, where there's a public review period before we can enact the amendment to it. So, but what happens is once we draft up, a revised amendment to the plan, or if we were to completely scrap and start new, we have to submit that revision to the legislative body, who will review it, and if they're in agreement, they can give us the go-ahead to submit it to the public to start that review period. Basically, if we were to submit it to them and they don't approve of, don't like it, then it doesn't proceed further until we, and at that point, collaboration's key there, but just, there's, any changes we make, it's not gonna just unilaterally be, this board without the collaboration, if anyone was worried about,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I wasn't so concerned about us doing it in a vacuum. I was just saying having dialogue as to incorporate.
Yeah, the actual master plan process, if you suggest we need a master plan amendment, council would be obviously involved in terms of allocating funds and beginning the process. And then there is, as, Brian mentioned, there's a whole not litany, there are certain steps mandated by state law. Number one being letting everyone aware, beginning a process, because the process legislated is completely open. It encourages collaboration, even with adjacent municipalities. You start that process, and that's why when we talked about, what could be done, a lot of times the level of public input you have can also, it can vary greatly. I pointed out that back in 2017, they had a survey done, over 400 people responded. But then they only were able to have one visioning session, which is good, but, the level of public input is decided when you decide on your outline for the master plan amendment. And then all those things happen, then you go through the creation process, you create a draft document, and as Brian said, then you submit it to council, and they have their opinion, and then you move forward. But anyway, that would be the process that would be undertaken. If
That
it
would
was
be for an
chosen.
amendment, if we
For an amendment.
didn't try to amend it, but tried to come up with a directional document of some kind.
So generally speaking, if it was any kind of plan, to actually have it any standing, it probably would be best to have it adopted as through this process, through the same process.
Okay, so
Because it's
if we want to
supplement-
make any change to it at all, then that's how it should be done.
Yes,
Yeah.
because that gives it weight, that gives it as an adopted plan through the state process that is officially adopted and has been reviewed by all the appropriate bodies.
So should we table this into the next meeting and give us time to review the plan in detail and come back with our comments and then take the discussion forward in the next meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
And the only thing I would suggest is if each of you could maybe, come back with a list of items you think, right,
Things
I
that
like
you would like to
this,
see
I don't like this. like
included or changed.
Correct. Or some ideas you have that, like some new policies that need to be addressed, things that need addressed as a, doesn't have to be bulleted list, but just whatever type of list you feel, so that you can have yours, and then we can have that discussion, and then during that discussion, we can begin to formulate them all, coordinate them together and that sort of thing.
Sounds good.
Now, would it be appropriate to include things like these economic development ideas into
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that would be part of the implementation section, and then also, yeah, just so that way you can bring up the key points that you feel it's lacking in, and then that would formulate, I would think, the scope of work you want to have happen on an amendment. if there's a lot of, if every member has a lot of concerns about economic development activity, that can be included as the amendment can include a lot more, like I said, data analysis, not just census data, but market analysis data. There are a lot of different firms out there and a lot of different sources of data that for, like I said, analysis of the different commercial markets, different commercial services offered, the markets, not just by Garden City residents, but in the area, that that has their dollar strength, basically, as to what kind of things are lacking that need to be developed, and all these kind of commercial market analysis that can be included.
When you spoke of the data, are we getting most of the data that goes into this from SEMCOG, or are we getting it from more national sources?
Well, all of them.
All of the
But meaning, sorry, I should say, yes, SEMCOG, but also the US Census can be included. As I mentioned in the memo, the 2020 census wasn't the greatest, just in terms of a lot of issues, COVID and other things. But it's still available. That's a different source. Then there are different commercial marketing sources for the data, a lot of ones. So the amount of data and information that we use would be based on the scope of work of the master plan and the funds available.
Well, before we can figure out how much work we're talking about, we should probably come back with some of the ideas from the commission.
We'll do a commission visioning session.
Yeah.
Yeah, after everybody brings their personal ideas
Sticky
back.
notes. Sticky notes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see that.
And you'll, Margo, supply us with whatever national or trend type data that supports whatever direction we may want to look at.
Yeah, if we do a master plan amendment, then yes, then we would be able to provide, that analysis with all the data.
Basically show us some ideas.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And those ideas will be based on, your direction that you give us, and I keep going back to it, but the whole scope of work, the ideas of like, these are the topics you want the master plan amendment to address, then we'll go out and find that information and come back with it as part of the master plan process. But I think the key is next month, you coming back, letting us know what items need to be addressed, what you like about the goals and objectives, the things you like, the things you don't like, things you think don't reflect what the city direction should go in, and then new things. And then we can combine them all, and then in the end, I think it sounds like you will need a memo to begin a discussion, present your conclusion that you need an amendment to the council to see what they say in terms of moving forward with doing an actual master plan amendment.
Okay. Do we need a motion to table? No, we'll just come back at the next meeting with
Yep.
this information. Okay, good. All right, moving on. Scheduling a public hearing for Warren and Inkster Road. We have a request to schedule a public hearing and gather public comments on October 12th, 2023 for a city-initiated rezoning of the properties located at 27419, 27427, 27459 Warren Road from C1 local business to C2 neighborhood business, and 7087 and 7069 Inkster Road from R1 to C2. Did you have anything you wanted to say about this?
Just that, the master plan does suggest taking a look at different sites, and considering rezoning them to provide the property owners with more opportunities to redevelopment. That site has 2 vacant pieces of property that have been long vacant. I think one of the keys is that on one of the Inkster properties, there was a long-standing optometrist, I think he was, eye doctor there.
Yeah.
I think he was. They have the R1 zoning, and so the property owner, the new property owner there, he can't put a commercial business in there until it gets rezoned. We already started looking at this. The planning commission looked at this in the past, and So it's just a matter of beginning the city-initiated rezoning by scheduling the public hearing.
Was that one covered in the overlay or no?
No, the overlay was over on Ford and, Betka, right?
Around Shaka.
Shaka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where the new Mexican restaurant
Yep.
is going in. Okay, well, we need a motion to schedule a public hearing for these
Make
properties.
a motion to schedule the public hearing for the Warren Inkster area.
Second?
Motion made and supported. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none. Would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull, Chairperson May.
Aye. Okay, scheduled for the October 12th meeting. Other business and discussion items, we have none. Now we have commissioners' comments regarding planning and zoning matters. So I'll start out with Kelly. I'd like to welcome you to our commission. And do you have any comments you'd like to make about zoning matters?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Trying to bring a new face, maybe some new ideas for you guys. Hopefully I can do that.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Steenberg.
As always, what new developments do we have? Do we have anything on pending developments?
Next month, you'll have a site plan for 32115 block. If you recall, this was an existing industrial piece of property where the property owner had placed asphalt millings in the back without approval to attempt to start a storage business. The applicant has now come back. They were working with a very good engineer, and they've already started having conversations with Wayne County to design the site appropriately with the appropriate stormwater management system to have the site as an outdoor storage for facilities. So that'll be before you, in addition to hopefully Taco John's. As I mentioned, I already had started conversations with Taco John's engineer. They agreed they needed to do all of it, and so they're going to provide those updated plans. Excuse me, not Taco John's, Dunkin' Donuts.
Duncan.
Dunkin'
Dunkin'
Donuts.
Donuts,
Yeah.
the Dunkin' Donuts site. Yeah, and then, yeah, that's,
Anything
Those are
new
achievements
on
we need.
Ford Road and Merriman?
no.
I understand Golden Feather is childcare.
Yes, so they are going through the building permit process. They ran into some issues with their stormwater, the existing conditions on site. The building department believed that the previous owner may have asphalted over an existing storm drain that impacted the drainage on the site, and there's also some existing drainage pipes. I think it was, yeah, the drainage pipes in the rear actually like have risen to the surface and they're visible, so it's causing some problems too. So the applicant is just going through that process of refurbishing the site to make it manageable in that area. One other aspect just wanted to bring up, well, no, I can't bring that up until they're before you. Once they have their site plan in front of you, the block property, we can go over their particulars in terms of what they're proposing. But beyond that, nothing substantial that's worth
Okay,
your time.
We can't talk about.
Thank you.
what's over
That's
the
all.
internet about the
That's
block
all?
property.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
We can't talk about what's all over the internet about the block property,
I'm sorry.
about what's on the internet about the block property, about what it is now.
Oh, I don't know. I stay off the Facebook pages. But I don't know. I haven't heard.
It's an online auction place.
Oh, it is. So actually, one aspect of that site, thank you very much, just to let everybody be aware, the building itself was attempting to be reutilized, and then so the building itself could be occupied with a new tenant, so they do have an online auction office in that building. So it's only in the building, they can't use the rear of the property at all. And so the proposed site plan would be for dealing with the proper stormwater and paving portions of the rear of the site to have it as outdoor storage for RVs and boats and those side of the larger recreational vehicles. So that's what the rear of the site would be, but the front of the building is currently being occupied as an office, yes.
So as far as RVs and boats and everything, there's a weight capacity limit on block. How are they gonna do that?
Exactly, those are the questions that they need to address. Those are the things that have to be addressed appropriately in terms of, and so they are going to be in front of you for special land use approval. So those kind of questions can be asked and have to be answered by the applicant to make sure that they're done appropriately. For example, one of the issues with the site also was the fact that there was a contractor yard that was operating on the area, and they were not only using block, but I can't remember, the other north-south road that's like halfway between Merriman and Harrison.
Hubbard?
Yeah, Hubbard. They were using Hubbard going northbound, and there's a sign there specifically saying they can't turn and go north. So these kind of things, there's a reason for those weight limits, there's a reason for these things. So we have to make sure that their special land use review specifically indicates the route of the vehicles, so.
Commissioner King?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Commissioner Turnbull?
No, sir.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing? Nothing else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Next regular meeting will be Thursday, October 12th, 2023. And thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. Meeting's adjourned.
All